Welcome back, everyone, to the Moms Like Me podcast, powered by Support Now. Super excited for my guest today, Maggie Herndon, who I was able to meet through our newest colleague, Ashley Huey. And it's amazing. I always say good people know good people. So when I was speaking with Ashley around opportunities and chances to meet other people in her network that might be great for the podcast, she immediately thought of her cousin Maggie here, who has a really incredible story, a story that I think a lot of our listeners will gravitate towards, because what she's doing today is heavily rooted in the experience that she has had as a mother raising a child with autism, nonverbal. And so, Maggie Herndon, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited for you to share more of your story, more of your journey, and to share your insights with more mamas that might need that extra love and support along their way. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks. I'm excited.
So Maggie, as a preview to our listeners, one of the things that Maggie does amazingly is she really gives back to this community by offering a unique method that helps children learn to communicate. It's called the Speller's Method. But before we get to the Speller's Method, I would love for you to share a little bit more about your motherhood journey. You have 2 boys, but talk to us a little bit about what got you into the world of autism.
Well, I'm sure my story is similar to a lot. My oldest is the one who's a non-speaker, Chase, and he got diagnosed when he was almost 2. He was typically developing regressed, lost speech. He had some language early on, and that kind of went away, and we didn't really know. We were in a small town. We didn't really know how to navigate this. We got his diagnosis, did all the recommended therapies for years. We relocated to Nashville to get access to better services, ABA, better speech, better OT, all the things that they recommend when you have a child that gets diagnosed. And so he is almost 16. We did everything. We did all the traditional things. We did all the things outside of the box, all the diets, anything you can think of within reason, we've tried.
Wow.
And the speech and the language never came back. We did some AAC devices and like Proliquo, some of those types of things. And they were fine in the younger years for basic communication and wants and needs. But like I said, the language and the speech just never came back. So that was kind of what just led us into finding spelling as communication.
So Maggie, before we get into that, I'm curious, first of all, tell us more about Chase. What's his personality like? Obviously, when your child is nonverbal, I think there's an assumption or an association with like, oh, well, are they there? And how do you communicate if they're not saying words? But from everything I've learned from moms like you, they have a lot of vibrancy to them. There's still a lot of personality. It just may not come out in the same way. So tell me a little bit more about him.
He's always been a very loving and energetic and happy kid. And like the younger years were hard because obviously there's a lot of frustration and a lot of meltdowns around not being able to communicate wants and needs. And, it's hard on us as parents to just kind of have to figure out, are they in pain or, are they just mad? Is this a typical tantrum or is this an autism tantrum? And, those years are hard. There's a lot of years with little sleep. There's a lot of comorbidities that go along with autism, that gut issues and things that just make that, another added layer. And so that was tough. But all along we knew, like, I just in my gut was like, I saw him there. I know he's still there. Like, I know he's hearing us. I know he's understanding us. And then we had other son, Miles. They are not even 2 years apart. So watching him grow up and, he's completely neurotypical. So just watching them interact and watching the way Chase watched Miles and the way we talk to Miles, we just automatically like talk to Chase that way too. So, part of what we do with Speller's Method is presume competence. And even before I knew that, back when he was younger, that was just something that we just innately felt like. And we didn't do it perfect, obviously. And there were still things that we obviously didn't presume competence in. But I think just from a standpoint of talking to him like a normal kid and treating him like he was there, we kind of always did all along. And we knew he was hearing us and understanding us and all of that. So.
Well, and I think, as you know, there can be a stigma with this diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that everyone has a different interpretation of what autism means. Like, it's an odd label. How do you describe autism to people? Or how do you want people to talk about Chase, knowing that that label is very defining and
Limiting.
very limiting to what someone might be capable of? How do you make sense of that?
I think that's hard because it's shifted so much for me since learning what I've learned with spelling. Early on, you aren't sure how much they're understanding or taking in or learning. And, you just go by what the professionals say and what the research says. But what we're finding is like the research hasn't caught up to where we are now and what we understand. And so I would say now, I think a lot of people still assume that autism is an intellectual disability, and it's absolutely not. It's a brain and body disconnect. And I'm kind of shifting my the way I would almost even say, I don't even want to label autism as autism anymore. I would rather it be whole body apraxia, because that's the challenge that this population is facing, especially, the ones that have less speech and less language are more limited in that capacity. It's not necessarily that it's not, it's 100% not that they don't have the language there. It's that they can't coordinate their body to speak. So the ones that have no language, that level of apraxia is higher versus the ones we call unreliable speakers or minimal speakers. Maybe their level of apraxia is not quite as severe on the spectrum. So apraxia, whole body apraxia, to me is a spectrum, just like they say autism is a spectrum, except I think the misconception is that it's intellectual, and it's absolutely not.
And it's interesting, even when you say whole body apraxia, that feels completely different than autism. Like just even the stigma around it is so different. And I also think it has to be pretty interesting for you, because when Chase was diagnosed, you may disagree, curious your thoughts. It was really kind of before this wave of awareness around autism. Would you agree that you were kind of pre-autism awareness? Because to me,
very much,
as a mom of young children, now it's thrown out. You hear it at every doctor's appointment. They do all these early detection tests and trying to understand and trying to grab baselines. My sense is that 16 years ago or 14 years ago, around the time you were getting a diagnosis, that wasn't yet a thing.
No, I mean, in fact, that was one of the biggest reasons we moved. I didn't know a single person that had a child on the spectrum in our hometown. We didn't even have doctors that could. I mean, even our pediatrician at the time, we were fighting. I was Googling things online and asking questions, and he was brushing me off don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. He's a boy. It'll come. And I just, in my gut, knew this isn't right. Something's not happening. But there was no support. There was no guidelines. There was no community. And that changed when we moved here. But it's even growing to this day. There's so many more people, kids being diagnosed, and just, social media wasn't as big then either. So connecting that way wasn't as easy.
It's so interesting. Sometimes I think we've over-indexed on it, and that's why it's become this scary term, because it's now the first thing that we think, oh, they must be autistic, or this might be an indication of autism. And meanwhile, not everyone actually has it, right? Some children are actually delayed, and also some children, some adults, we all have different strengths and weaknesses as it becomes to verbal capabilities, physical capabilities, and that doesn't all mean that it's a part of this autism bucket.
Yeah.
Maggie, I'm also curious to understand, you've talked a lot about Chase and the diagnosis, and some of the things that were lacking. What do you remember, other than the exhaustion, of course, about your emotions towards him? Did you grieve? What was that feeling like for you and your husband when you realized he may not gain this speech back, and the life that we maybe had thought we would have with him is going to be very different than, again, what we thought parenthood or motherhood was going to look like?
Oh, man. I mean, the early days of diagnosis are tough. I think they're tough for any family, because you do grieve. You grieve all your dreams and hopes for them, and the things you think that, you have these grand plans. And I heard another parent describe it okay, well, you've planned this beautiful, amazing trip to Italy, and you've got this whole itinerary planned out, and you're so excited about it, and then you land and you realize wait, I'm not in Italy, I'm in Holland. Which Holland's not the worst place to land, it's just not what you expected. And I loved that analogy because it's so true. It's you love your children obviously no matter what, it's just not what you expected. So you have to sort of just do a 180 and figure out how are we going to navigate this journey now, because it's not where we thought we were landing.
That's such a funny and such a great analogy. I love that. And
I don't know who I stole it from. I'm sorry. I can't give good credit to where it's due, but I loved it. And I was that's so true.
It's such a great analogy, right? And you're going to love your kids no matter what. And that doesn't mean there can't be distance and a gap between what you thought you were going to have and what you dreamt of and where you are. And I think what's also really interesting about your response is it's not just the grief of what your hopes and dreams for him. It's also the hopes and dreams for you?
Well, and I mean, on that note, I think it's just a constant emotional seesaw because, like, in the early years, there's fear, there's uncertainty, and, we have a really strong faith too. So, like, that aspect of it, we never gave up hope that, like, God would give us whatever we needed or the miracle we were hoping, like, we will never give up. Like, I'm still to this day, like, I believe that if the Lord wants to give him his speech back, he will if he can. And if that's part of his journey and his story. But, sometimes that gets clouded in the hard days and the struggles and along the way. And so I think it's just been a seesaw of, like, we've gotten little tastes of, and the most recent one obviously is spelling. Like, we never gave up hope that there would be something to give him his voice back. We just didn't know what it was or what to hope for or kind of what to pray for. And it's not like, obviously we were always praying for his speech to come back. That didn't happen, but now we have this. So it's still a beautiful miracle to have witnessed and to have now,
Right.
even though it's not what we had thought we were going to get.
Sure. Well, so explain to people that may not be familiar with Spaller's method what it is.
Right. Okay. So people are probably familiar with, like, AAC devices, iPad devices with buttons and things. And this is just another form of an AAC that's a letter board. I should have brought one with me to show, but it's either a stencil board or like a foam board with the alphabet on it. Eventually, the goal is to get them on a keyboard, which Chase is on a keyboard now, but you start on like 3 letter boards broken down, and you're just teaching the motor planning of finding the letters with your eyes and poking it with your finger. It's a motor therapy, essentially. We know with presuming competence in the method or we presume competence and assume that they know how to spell. And we do find that all of them do once they are able to motor plan to do it. But it's basically just communicating on a letterboard or keyboard, something with the alphabet where we're teaching the motor of it.
And in this method, is the desired outcome that they would be able to, like, type to communicate? Like, what's the ultimate goal of doing this? Is it just to exercise the brain to make those connections between the body and brain?
I mean, the ultimate goal is for them to get on any of the boards that have 26 letters, because we say with 26 letters, there's infinite possibilities. Once they learn the motor, there's a huge visual piece with Apraxia. The way it's taught, it takes out as much of the fine motor pieces that are involved in speech as possible. So you're using the gross motor of your shoulder to poke the letters. And so it just takes out more motor demand on their body. And then we're helping, there's a huge visual piece with Apraxia too. So it's almost like vision therapy, where you're coaching them to, like, find the letter, connect their eyes with their hand, touch the letter, and myelinating those pathways. Well, once they get to where they can do that, like, seamlessly without a lot of prompting or directional or help or anything like that, they can spell anything they want. And so we just say whatever that looks like for them and whatever their body can do, whether it's a stencil board, a foam board, a keyboard, like 26 letters is infinite possibilities for them.
And so what have you seen from this method with Chase?
I mean, it was a slow journey in the beginning. I started off there wasn't a provider here. We had someone coming in town once a month. It was messy. It's hard. It's a lot of work. I'm essentially his coach when it comes down to it, teaching this new, I call it like the golf swing, because I'm terrible at golf. So I'm like, this is an easy analogy for me to think about. Like, it's like going out and learning golf. He's just got to learn this swing and he's got to keep his eye on the ball. And in the beginning, we didn't practice a lot, and I didn't realize the importance of that. And then once I did, and we started practicing consistently, I saw the fruits of our labor. He started being able to communicate openly. And it's a process. It's a lot of practice. And now he's communicating on a keyboard. So it's not independent, but
Yeah, so but give me an example. Like, what can he communicate? And, like, is it for everyday needs? Is it just his emotions? Like, what sort
all
of
of it.
things? All of it. So give me an
All of it.
example.
So, I mean, it's funny because I had this whole list of questions, and I was like, when he gets open, I have this, for 15 years, we've not heard anything about what he feels and thinks and wants and needs. And, I just had this whole list of, like, what's your favorite this and where do you want to go? And I think he's just sat in his mind. He's been locked in his brain for all these years, holding on to, like, what am I going to say first when I'm able to? And so he's very passionate about spreading awareness about Apraxia. he really wants people to understand like autism is not autism, it's whole body apraxia. And he advocates all the time, like, I want people to understand apraxia. I want people to understand spelling. I want people to understand presuming competence. He wants to present to Congress. He's told me that I don't even know a dozen times.
Wow.
I'll ask him some days, like, I mean, his faith also comes out every day. Like, all he wants to do is help me spread the gospel. Please share this, spread God's love. Like, he's constantly telling me, like, pray to Jesus, or I'll be like, I mean, he's deepening our faith as a family just through his own faith. And I think that's what's carried him through the last 15 years of being locked in silence and misunderstood. And so, I mean, I would say that's probably the biggest thing that we get from him on a daily basis. Sometimes I'm like, hey, what do you want for breakfast? And he's like, pray to Jesus. And I'm like, dude, I love you so much. And I pray to Jesus all the time, but I also need to know what you want for breakfast so I can help you.
Does that mean waffles? Right.
I mean,
Oh
his
my
faith
God.
is beautiful, and I don't mean to like minimize it by joking about that
Of
because
course,
that's
of
not
course.
at all what it's like, but it's very deep and profound. And I mean, the other piece of that too is like he's advocating for independency now, which has been a huge like 180 for me because I've just gotten used to doing things for him through the years. And, I like to think that I give him independence, but even now, like every morning, he's like, don't like stop helping me. Just let me do it myself. Or like, let me
Wow.
make my own breakfast. Let
So
me
he's a
make my own
teenager.
lunch.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's a teenager just like everybody else.
Yep. So I'm having
This
to unlearn a lot of
so
habits.
but also where my head goes is, I mean, it makes me emotional thinking about like where you once were so fearful that you would never really know him, meet him, understand his heart. It must be an incredible thing to also just know that he feels your love.
Totally.
I
Yeah.
mean, like that part to me would be the part that just is so inspiring to keep going because now you have this way of him acknowledging that he sees all the work you're doing and then for him to kind of come back and acknowledge that in so many ways by
Totally.
sharing the things and the themes that have been important to you and being able to echo those back. I mean, that has to be so validating.
It's been an emotional, I mean, he just got open like at the end of maybe beginning of this year. So it's fresh, it's new, and
Wow.
we're just meeting him really for the first time in the last handful of months. And I mean, it's been an emotional roller coaster in the best way, and it's just overwhelming to think like the level and depth of his intelligence is so far beyond what I could comprehend. I mean, I always knew, like I knew he was in there, just not to the capacity that we are seeing now, even just like with academic work or his thoughts and beliefs on the world around him and things that are going on.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It has to be so fascinating, but again, for you to be able to kind of like reap the fruits of your labor and all this work and all this effort of therapies and devices and methods, and it's like, oh wow, like you had a
Finally.
breakthrough, and yeah, I mean, that must. I feel like something that moms don't say enough is like that we're proud of ourselves. Are you proud of yourself, Maggie? Because you should
Well,
be.
this one feels like a really good win. Like, and I mean, I cannot take all the credit, obviously. Like, it's been a group effort. I couldn't have done it without obviously like our faith and that aspect of it, but then like my husband's support
Yeah.
and then my other son, just his patience. And I think the siblings often go unlooked and overlooked, or just, the resilience that they have and the empathy and the patience. Oh my goodness, the patience. And, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. No,
there's a
it's a
lot of
lot.
layers.
Well, and it's listen, for any parent that's listening that has multiple children, it's hard enough when you have multiple children and pulling your way, trying to figure out, is this fair? Am I showing up in the same way emotionally and physically? And then you add in a medical diagnosis that simply requires more of you. And so then there really is a delta between kind of where you can be with both kids, and you wonder the
Yeah.
effects. Some kids understand and seem to kind of grasp that pretty quickly. But for other
Mhm.
kids, that's more challenging. And of course, it evolves along the journey. But for Miles, seemingly to understand and to almost like appreciate kind of what you and your husband are doing, it adds to me to the sweetness of the entire thing. Not to sugarcoat it, because I know that it's not as easy nor as glorious as one might make it seem. So, Maggie, you found out about the Speller's method. You talked about how it started slow, but you stayed with it, you stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it took years for it to really unlock. And then you took it upon yourself to say, wow, this has been so valuable, so meaningful for my family. I want to really pay it back or pay it forward by helping other children. So you've become certified in this method. Talk to me a little bit, or talk to us a little bit more about what it means to be Spellers certified, and really like how others might be able to unlock the same resource where they live or where they are.
Well, so Chase was working with a provider locally that got trained in spelling to communicate, and that's who was kind of his primary communication partner in the beginning. And communication partner is just like the main person that spells with them, that's holding the board and giving them all the prompts and, just kind of helping co-regulate and things like that. So she was working with him and just was seeing this influx and was like, I need someone else here helping me. And she really kind of nudged me to do it. She's like, I think you'd be great at it. Like, you really get it. And so we both went through the Speller's Method training together. We got certified officially it's been almost a year, last summer, last May. So we both went. It's a pretty intense training. I think it was 6 or 8 months.
Wow.
Graduate level training. It was intense. And to go back to school
And
in
you
your
have a
40s.
full-time job. I mean, how'd you do that?
I don't know.
Wow.
It was rough, but we did. I mean, I think when there's passion behind what you're doing, you can do anything, when there's a fire that's lit, like it's hard to, you can just push through. So that's what we did. That's what I did.
And so now you meet with patients weekly. What's your cadence?
I see clients. I do. I have a pretty good caseload. I'm actually on a wait list right now, which is it's hard. It's a blessing, but it's also like there's just such a need. And my time, it's hard when I have the kids. I'm trying to squeeze the people I'm seeing into school hours and, juggling all the things. So, and it's hard. I want to help everybody, but trying to keep those boundaries and capacity in check, has to.
You can't pour from an empty cup. And so it's like you want to help everyone, but you need to make sure it doesn't become a drain on what you're able to do for yourself.
Right.
So on that note, and as we begin to wrap up, one of my questions for you is, oftentimes when parents get autism diagnosis specifically, the first thing they feel is panic, fear, panic, maybe sadness, anger. What is one of, if you want to give us two, but one of your biggest piece of advice for those parents in the very early days of a diagnosis like this?
Oh gosh. I mean, the diagnosis is hard because you just assume that this label is going to be slapped on your kid and that's going to be like their defining, label. And I would say just like ignore the label. It doesn't make them who they are at their core. It's not like a life sentence for any kind of outcome. There's so many things that have come about even with spelling and learning about whole body apraxia. Like, there's just so much that can be done outside of the traditional diagnosis box that I think people just need to go into it open-minded, that like, I can still help my kid overcome this. It's not, they're not going to be stuck in this autism box. There are things out there.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing, it's like, don't assume the worst. Don't assume that your life is over. It's getting started. It's going to be hard.
You landed in Holland. Congratulations.
And it's beautiful. Okay.
Holland.
Italy. Who needs Italy?
And that's not to negate the hard things, because it is hard. It's hard, but there is hope.
There's hope. And again, this is part of why I love bringing moms on who have children in their teens and a little bit older, because you represent some light to people. If you have younger children, in the toddler ages or even, elementary school, it can be very fear-driven, just a lot of decisions based off of fear and uncertainty. And so I think when moms see other moms that have just like made it, like you've made it, you've kept Chase alive for 16 years and you still have your sanity and you look great and you sound great and you at least present in a way where it's like, she looks like she's living life. Sometimes that's all moms need to see. Well, yeah, but or just that you're going to get through it because I think at the
Yeah,
beginning it feels like
definitely.
a diagnosis that you'll never really get through, whether it's your own grief getting in the way or just the actual effects that it's going to have on your kid. So I really just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing this because your perspective it has been interesting to me for a few reasons. One, it's always interesting to hear how people take on a medical diagnosis and respond to it. But two, you've really offered a really impactful resource in the Speller's method to say, if the traditional route doesn't work for you, there are other ways of looking at how to get your kid to communicate. It may not come from here, it may come from here, and that's fine, but not to give up. And the good news about the autism surge, from my perspective as well, it may be talked about more than ever. It may be honestly overdiagnosed at this point. It means that people are building things for it. It means they're creating more resources for it, which hopefully paves the way, not just for better outcomes, but to take a little bit of that fear and stress away from parents that they will be okay too.
Yeah.
You will get your life back in a way. Maggie, for those that want to learn more about the Speller's method, what's the best way of learning more or getting in touch with you to explore if this could be an option for their child?
Yeah, I mean, I think visiting the Speller's Method website, which is just spellers.com, there's a bunch of resources listed on there. And I can send over to you I don't know if you put his stuff in the show notes, but
Yeah.
I can send over. There's also Dana Johnson has an amazing YouTube channel that explains all kinds of aspects of spelling, but also whole body apraxia, which I think is just a crucial piece that needs to be understood when it comes to autism. And I would say, before even looking into spelling, I would focus on learning about that if you have a child in the younger ages and starting out on this journey, like understanding how and why that affects them. I wish I had known that above anything else early on in the phase of autism.
Great to know. Maggie Herndon, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. We will absolutely link in the show notes, and I look forward to future conversations with you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.